Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling the actual architecture of global power. Look, when you look at the world stage right now, there's a pretty undisputed reality regarding military dominance. And we're going to decode exactly how that dominance is built from the ground up. We're literally breaking down the complex machinery of the United States military to solve a core mystery. What actually creates global military supremacy in the modern era?
Okay, let's dive into this. When you think of a powerful military, your mind probably jumps straight to sheer numbers, right? Millions of troops lined up, massive battalions, just raw manpower. But actually, in today's world, sheer troop volume just isn't the primary metric of power anymore. It's all about structural advantage. It's this complex combination of resources, innovation, and strategic positioning. So we really have to ask ourselves, is it just the money? Is it the technology? Or is there a deeper underlying framework at play here?
To figure that out, we'll break this superpower status down into five distinct pillars: the massive defense budget, advanced military technology, global reach and the Navy, the concept of deterrence, and finally, elite forces and alliances. All right, starting off with Pillar 1, the massive defense budget. Because, listen, before you can have advanced jets, global bases, or elite training, you need the ultimate enabler, right? You need capital. And $800 billion, that is the annual defense spending of the United States. It's just a genuinely staggering figure. I mean, this isn't just a budget. It's the financial engine driving every single capability we're going to talk about today. It's literally the sheer scale of this entire operation quantified in dollars. And to really put that into perspective, the United States doesn't just outspend its nearest competitor. No, it outspends the next several countries combined. That's a massive critical takeaway here. This huge financial advantage is exactly what allows the U.S. to maintain a constant, uninterrupted cycle of global presence and continuous capability upgrades. They aren't just buying equipment with that money. They're buying the ability to basically never fall behind the innovation curve. Which brings us to Pillar 2, advanced military technology. So, if the massive budget is the how much, this pillar is the exactly what. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what they are actually buying with all that capital: a profound technological advantage. We aren't just talking about standard vehicles and weapons here. We're looking at fifth-generation stealth fighter jets like the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning II. We're talking about the massive integration of artificial intelligence into drone networks. We're even looking way beyond the atmosphere to highly advanced space-based surveillance systems. And the practical result of investing in this really specific hardware is just fundamental to modern combat. You see, it's not necessarily about being the loudest on the battlefield anymore. It's about being invisible when you need to be. These technologies quite literally make U.S. forces harder for an enemy to detect, harder to track, and ultimately way harder to counter. It creates this massive asymmetrical advantage long before a conflict even begins. Moving on to Pillar 3, global reach and the Navy. Let's look at how this builds from pure technology into strategic geography. Now, unlike most nations whose military strategy is pretty much entirely focused on just defending their own physical borders, the U.S. operates on a global chessboard. They maintain military bases in over 70 countries. Over 70! Just think about the sheer logistics of that for a second. This incredibly vast network means that when a global threat arises, the United States doesn't need weeks to mobilize and deploy forces across the globe. No, they can respond to threats almost anywhere in the world within a matter of hours. Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is the contrast in how that power is actually projected, specifically by the U.S. Navy. The U.S. operates 11 aircraft carriers. Think about the difference here. Traditional foreign land bases are static, right? They're geographically limited, and crucially, they are entirely dependent on the goodwill of host nations. But an aircraft carrier? Well, that's essentially a sovereign floating military base. It allows the U.S. to project massive power across oceans with absolute flexibility, completely independent of any land borders. Honestly, it's the most powerful naval force in history for this exact reason. Let's shift gears a bit for Pillar 4, the concept of deterrence. Now we really need to look at military psychology and doctrine. The United States maintains one of the largest nuclear arsenals on the planet, but the doctrine behind it is actually incredibly counterintuitive. It's the concept of deterrence. The entire purpose of building and maintaining these completely devastating weapons is, well, never to actually use them. The logic here is that if an enemy knows with absolute certainty that a devastating counterstrike is guaranteed, they're highly, highly unlikely to launch an initial attack. It's all about preventing war through the undeniable promise of retaliation. Basically, it's a psychological shield made out of absolute destructive capability.
And finally, Pillar 5, elite forces and alliances.
Because, of course, a machine is only ever as good as its operator. In this pillar, we ground all of this high-tech hardware and massive budgeting right back into the human element. Because let's be real, technology and money mean absolutely nothing without the actual people executing the mission. And this human element is extremely multi-layered. First, you've got highly trained soldiers supported by the most advanced logistics network ever conceived. Then, right at the tip of the spear, you have elite specialized units like the Navy SEALs and Special Forces who are trained to handle the most complex, dangerous missions anywhere on the planet. But it's not just Americans. The final piece of this puzzle is international cooperation. Working closely with global allies, particularly through organizations like NATO, creates a massive shared intelligence network. These alliances act as just unparalleled force multipliers.
So let's bring it all together for our synthesis, the formula for superpower status.
We've definitely covered a lot of ground today, but the true picture really only emerges when we look at the whole thing. Superpower status isn't derived from just one of these elements in a vacuum. It's an exact, highly interconnected formula. It requires the massive budget to fund the advanced tech. It requires the global reach to project that tech, the strategic deterrence to shield a nation, and the powerful alliances to multiply the forces. So the crucial point is, if you take away any one of these 5 steps, the entire architecture of power changes fundamentally.
And this brings us to a really vital analytical takeaway from our source material today. When we analyze this immense apparatus, the aircraft carriers, the stealth jets, the billions upon billions of dollars, we have to recognize its ultimate intended function. True military power on this scale isn't just about flexing raw strength. Structurally speaking, it's explicitly designed around maintaining global stability and preventing conflict before it even erupts. But, as we all know, the world is never static. Technology leaps forward, economies fluctuate, and global relationships are always changing. So I want to leave you with a thought to ponder. With global dynamics constantly evolving like this, how do you think this balance of power might shift in the future? Will technology outpace the need for a massive navy? Will new alliances completely reshape the map? I would absolutely love to hear your theories on this. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.